speed. Success! Future stars. A new beast in build, plus a big push for the paras. And of course, plenty in Docktalk. One of the things that keeps us sane in the depths of winter up here in the Northern Hemisphere is being able to tune into some racing down under. And this year we had a double helping in Sydney. First came SailGP, the penultimate event in the second season for the Flying F50s. And what an event it was! The racing has become more intense with every event, but this one had lots of drama.
Oh my God! Oh my God! What the...
So if you didn't follow the action at the time, as well as catching up with who came out on top, you can get behind the scenes to see how Ben Ainsley and Nathan Outridge resolved their differences after a major crash. Remember, this is the Nathan Outridge that Ben told to
Shut up, Nathan! Mate, that's a call. We're going to try and get behind you. Stop moaning.
And then there was the Rolex Sydney Hobart race, a Boxing Day classic. Last year the race had to be cancelled due to the pandemic. This year it was on. And according to some of the crews, it turned out to be one of the hardest ever. Here's why. The start is as much about spectators as it is about the racing itself. And then there's the iconic harbour, a natural amphitheatre.
To be able to sail out at Sydney Harbour with all the spectator fleet and all the people on the foreshore, and then being able to make it to Hobart and get the reception we get, which is second to none anywhere in the world. I've been lucky enough to do Rolex races all around the world, and nothing comes close to the reception you get in Hobart.
But above all else, it's known as a tough race.
It's obviously an impossibly difficult race to win, especially back to back. It hasn't been done since '65, but we're aiming to do it, and fingers crossed we can give ourselves the best chance possible given the weather conditions. Funnily enough, several others had that on their minds too.
We're here to win the race. We're prepared to win the race, but we need to put a good performance out there in the ocean, and hopefully we can get into our routine and our combinations and put a good effort together.
Everyone wants to win the Sydney Hobart. They all want it on their resume, and so it'd be incredible.
The turkeys had been placed to one side as thousands of spectators headed out to see the start of the Boxing Day Classic. Once the fleet had passed through the notorious Sydney Heads, they were out in open ocean, and conditions were punchy from the start as the fleet set off on the 600-mile leg south. After just 24 hours, the strong southerly winds and big seas had forced the retirement of 24 boats in the 88-strong fleet. Leading the charge to Hobart were three 100-footers. Peter Harburg's Blackjack was in front. Just behind was Christian Beck's Law Connect, with David Witt's SHK Scallywag in third. But after a difficult opener, the second half of the race was very different. Light breezes made the approach into Hobart a tricky one, particularly for the tacticians. But 100-foot Supermaxis eat up the miles whatever the breeze. Just 2.5 days later, and after holding their nerve and chewing their nails in the closing stages, the crew of Blackjack took line honours. An impressive achievement for a boat that was originally launched in 2003 as Alfa Romeo.
It was good, probably 20 hours upwind in 20 to 25 knots southerly, and so the challenge there is it's wind against tide, so it's pretty bumpy. I mean, we've got a great light air boat, but Adam Beashel and again Kevin Costin and Graham Taylor from Melbourne did a great job in the light air. So, you know, really they got the big break that we ended up with in the end, which ended up being a good sort of hour and a bit, I suppose. You know, we had a lot of infrastructure behind the tactical side of the race, and I feel like we did a pretty good job ultimately.
Behind them, Matt Allen and his crew aboard Ichiban, about half the size, had set the bar high, aiming to take the overall win on corrected time. And as he explained, it was challenging from the start.
It was, you know, an incredibly difficult race, probably the hardest on the boats and the crew that we've seen for many years. Because of the wave conditions that we saw really first through the first 24 hours of the race, really creating big issues for the boats, trying to make sure that the boats weren't crashing off the waves too much. And then you had that very complicated tactical situation for the rest of the race that really enabled, you know, decision making to be absolutely critical to have a chance of winning the race.
And true to form, the last stretch up the River Derwent was notoriously tricky, but Ichiban held it together and took the overall win. Their second in a row. That's only the second time that's been achieved since 1960. This was also the third time Allen had won the race as skipper. Now that really is impressive.
Yeah, look, it's amazing to be part of the history and the fabric of the Rolex Sydney to Hobart race with a back-to-back win. I mean, we're just so elated, the crew's so elated. It's always been a lifetime passion to win the Sydney to Hobart, and I was fortunate enough to win it very early in my life as a member of the crew of Challenge 2. But then to win it 3 times as skipper is something that it probably is still sinking in. It's something that we've been trying to do, and we've been trying to do the back-to-back. And we put it out there in 2018 and weren't lucky enough to bring it home that year. It's really special. It's really special for the crew, and even the younger guys in the crew are really realising that they are part of, you know, the history of this great race.
If you've been following the story so far, you'll know that the Cup is in a pretty odd place at the moment. Usually, if there is such a thing, by this stage in the Cup cycle, we'll have a venue and a couple of teams that have signed up. If we're lucky, we'll have a decent list of challenger hopefuls, teams that like the idea but need to rustle up the cash. And as the clock ticks away to the first race, several of those teams will fall by the wayside. This time is the other way round. While entries aren't into double figures, and frankly are never going to be, we do have a good clutch of well-funded challengers, plus the promise of some motorsport muscle to spice things up a bit. As the challengers of record, it's this club, the Royal Yacht Squadron in Cowes, that's handling the paperwork from those that fancy of having a crack at the Cup. Just before Christmas, the Swiss steamer Lingy declared that they were up for the Cup. You may have seen this in a feature we ran following their announcement. Funded by Ernesto Bertarelli and with a track record of success, they're a team to be taken seriously, especially as they bring in the Red Bull F1 team with them. Luna Rossa also announced that they'd be taking part in the 37th America's Cup, and there's mutterings that there's a link with Ferrari, but that's just gossip at the moment. The most recent announcement is that of American Magic, who've declared that they too will be coming to the party. They're now buddies again with the New York Yacht Club. So, including Ineos Britannia, that's 4 challengers, 4 serious challengers. What we don't know yet is where the Cup will be. To be fair, we hadn't expected to know at this stage either. March is supposed to be the big reveal. But things have got a bit more complex. In addition to Auckland, Jeddah, Barcelona and Cork, Malaga in Spain is said to now be in the running. The trouble is that with the exception of Jeddah, I'm hearing that the others all have issues with raising money, and I'm not surprised. And then there's the logistics of hosting not just the Cup, but the teams for what is often a long build-up. To do that, you want to train in the kind of weather you're going to race in. Now, I love Cork and I've raced there many times. and it's not renowned for its endless summers of steady breezes and flat seas. Barcelona's not really well known for much wind at all. Malaga might be a bit better, being 65 miles inside the Gibraltar Straits, but not much. The funny thing is that this time it seems easier to announce a super team than it is to pick a venue. Glad I don't have to do it. Meanwhile, at McConaughey Boats facility in China, the new AC40 is underway. 8 of these foiling one designs have been ordered, with the first one due to hit the water in Auckland in August. After that, it's expected that a boat will be delivered every 5 weeks. It's an exciting prospect, especially when you consider what happened following the one design AC45 wing-masted cats. We've come a long way since then. But there's more. Apparently the AC40 and the simulator will be available to private owners. So could this be the start of a new wave of Grand Prix racing? Now there's a tantalising thought. Setting foiling to one side for a minute, the other big deal that keeps giving is double-handed racing. And here's another example, the Aeolus P30. She's 30 foot long and has been designed by Hans Gente, a 2-time winner of the single-handed silver rudder race in Denmark. Her looks say plenty about what this design concept is aimed at. But there's more to this design than hard chines, narrow waterline beam and a dreadnought bow. At just over 1,500 kilos, she's around half the weight of other similar IRC designs. She's been designed for both single-handed and a full crew of 6. She has a lifting rudder and keel to allow her to trail, a system for raising and lowering the mast, a Jenica chute, and a slick system for dealing with the bowsprit. And so the list goes on. In fact, the only thing that's missing is the invitation to her launch. As performance ramps up offshore, so does the need for advanced clothing. But so too does the need to make the next generation of clothing sustainable. Musto's recently launched One Single Material, or OSM as it's known, goes a long way to helping to achieve this. The focus has also been on production, where a new dyeing process uses 90% less water and 85% less chemicals than traditional methods. Little surprise then that 11th Hour Racing Team has joined forces with Musto to help in designing and developing a new range of technical yet stylish and sustainable clothing for on and off the water. The team's recently launched Imoca 60 Malama was designed and built along the same principles, with a strong focus on sustainability and circularity of materials and resources. Here's a question for you. What would you say the carbon footprint of a new Imoca 60 is, and how would that compare to the footprint 10 years ago? According to 11th Hour Racing Team, the answer to the first question is 550 tonnes of carbon dioxide. That's almost double what it would have been a decade ago. 11th Hour Racing Team is calling for the racing yacht industry to align with the Paris Agreement on climate change and cut its carbon footprint by at least half to achieve the target set by 2030. But the racing scene's emissions have continued to grow. 11th Hour Racing Team is on a mission to identify potential solutions, test their viability and share them with the industry. It's a complex process that goes way beyond simply looking at sustainable materials. With their new Imoca 60 now racing, the team has compiled a comprehensive design and build report to form a benchmark and roadmap to help other racing teams, and it can be downloaded from their website now. It's a bit quiet up here in Northern Europe. Our local river's a bit empty. We've had a few gales, some floods and even some snow. But in Namibia, on Africa's southwest coast, it's the speed sailing season, and the Luderitz Speed Challenge, which has often delivered some impressive world records. It's the modern version of what Weymouth Speedway used to be like for windsurfers and kiteboarders, but with sun, sand and loads of wind, and a dedicated speed sailing canal. It's fascinating to watch, with some staggering speeds being notched up. And while there weren't any new records set this time, the top runs were well over 50 knots. Anyway, it seemed like a good reason to take a look at some of the impressive footage. Because if you've ever thought that speed sailing on flat water in a purpose-made channel was a bit too easy, you should take a look at this. Bjorn Dunkerbeck likes speed. With 42 World Championship titles, the Dane seems to have got the hang of it. And he's not just good in flat water. He holds the world speed record in open ocean at 44.77 knots. And in November 2021, he posted his fastest time ever here in Namibia. That's 56 knots. But going like the clappers is not always straightforward. You can end up on a wild goose chase. And it hurts. A lot. And sometimes you need a bin liner rather than a kit bag. But one of the most interesting things to those of us who followed speed sailing for some time is how frequently the 50-knot barrier is broken. Many thought it simply wasn't possible, especially without hydrofoils. Apparently not. How long is a piece of string? Long as you'd like if you're asking Marlow Ropes. And as ropes become more advanced, so too does their production. High performance materials such as Dyneema, Xylon, Technora, Kevlar, Teflon and Zyx are well known in the racing world. But Marlow's Grand Prix series has taken rope production onto another level, where teams can work with the technical team to create custom solutions. Strength, abrasion resistance, thermal properties, friction and handling properties can all be factored into the design of the rope. And it doesn't stop there. Tethered ropes, hoist markers and even ropes that glow in the dark are additional features that can be included. So asking how long it is barely gets you started. Here's an interesting new approach to something we take for granted, the furler. UBI Mayer's JB Jiber works without the usual aluminium extruded foil. Instead, the forestay is linked to the drum and swivel and rotates to furl the sail. It means that the sail can be hoisted up and down and the halyard tension can be adjusted at any time. The luff can be attached to the forestay using either soft hanks or a zip, which makes raising and lowering much quicker than with conventional systems. The manufacturers claim that the JB Jiber is also much lighter, has less windage and drag, and therefore sails higher and faster upwind. But they also make the claim that because sails can be reefed more easily, you can have bigger ones. Doyle Sails' employee roll call includes a long list of rock stars. Among them is Kiwi sailor Stu Bannatyne, His name is synonymous with round the world racing, having completed 8 Volvos and Whitbreads, but he's also just as focused on sails, in particular Doyle's structured luff technology.
Because of the technology, we're able to make the mid-girth code zeros flatter, which means that they can be used at much tighter angles, and the ability to change the shape of the sail by just easing the tack up or changing the lead a little bit means we're getting a lot more range out of the sails as well. And the way the development's been going, that's quite often not more than a year or 18 months before we can make a pretty big jump in design, just because we're developing these sails every day. Every new sail that goes out is a small tweak better than the last one.
In the heat of the noise of Grand Prix racing, youth sailing often gets overlooked. But let's face facts, they are the future. So I, for one, was looking forward to the 2021 Youth Sailing World Championships in Oman. And if you're in any doubt as to the importance of an event that has now been running for 50 years, just look at the names that have won the Youth World since it began in 1971. Russell Coutts, Chris Dixon, Dean Barker, Nathan Outridge, Ian Jensen, Robert Scheid, Ben Ainsley, Ian Percy. And so the list goes on. You get the point. What happens today could shape what we talk about tomorrow. Aside from the names of the rising stars, the other thing to strike me was to hear and see how much foiling is a part of the youth world. There are plenty of people with hair the same colour as mine who question whether foiling is really sailing and whether it'll really catch on. In my opinion, they're wrong. But who cares what I think? According to the new generation, it's not a topic that's up for debate, and good for them. And if you still think that these kids don't know what they're missing by not having a lead keel and a good old-fashioned head bang upwind, take a listen to British sailing team coach Sam Ross. It's fascinating and makes you realise just how far down the line these kids are. I urge you to watch the full interview by either following the links in the description below or on screen. In the meantime, Ellie Cartwright provides a roundup from Oman.
This is the 2021 Youth Sailing World Championships right here in the Gulf of Oman.
There were 2 ways to get to the podium: smash every race and cruise to a medal, or fight for every point. Those that dominated their classes often did so with style. Israel's Gal Zuckerman won every single race in the Formula Kite females. Few in the world ever get to know what it's like to discard a string of firsts as their worst score in a series. Zuckerman now does. As does Manon Pianaza from France in the girls' Techno 293 fleet. She too won every race. Interestingly, in the kites, Poland's Julia Damandesiec discarded any result that wasn't a second to take the runner-up medal. Heloise Pegori from France posted mainly thirds to come third overall. In the male techno class, it was a similar affair as Italy's Federico Pelloni notched up 10 wins from 13 races.
Very, very excited today because I've managed to officially win it a day before, so that's, brilliant, and I've dreamed to get this title, and it's just been a really nice journey to come here, and I'm just so happy.
Britain's Boris Shaw took 8 seconds and a win to finish second overall. Confidence was in abundance in the Formula Kite male class as Maximilian Maida from Singapore delivered 14 wins out of 18 races to take gold.
I feel great. I mean, it can't go much better, can it? The first day was a bit of a blunder, but this day completely equalizes it. I'm phenomenally happy.
In the 420 females, there was a close battle between the Spanish and the Americans for the top spot, with Neus Ballester and Andrea Pereiro taking the title for Spain.
Well, I don't know, it's so happy for us to make these positions. And it was so regular because we do a 3-1, 3-1, 3-1, and today a 4-1. But well, we are very happy.
In the 420 mixed crews, Germany's Florian Kraus and Yannis Sumchen might never have won a race, but they were always close to the front, which was sufficient to win overall by just 4 points. In the girls' ILCA 6 class, Florencia Chiarela's best results were 2/3, but the Peruvian sailor and a product of the Emerging Nations programme still took the overall win by 9 points. France's Hugo Reville and Carl Devaux pulled a similar trick in the male 29er class, with only one win but a string of consistently good results elsewhere. In the same class with the girls, British pair Emily Muella and Florence Brailsford spent the week sparring with Charlie Lee and Sophie Fisher from the USA.
Yeah, so the racing's been really close between us and the US. We've been sort of like top 3 most races with them and us, but then there's been a couple races where we've had a bad one, but they've also had a bad one in the same race, so we've always been really close. So it's just been about fighting for every position. We've crossed the line pretty much at the same time as them in quite a few races, so it could have sort of gone either way, but luckily we've pipped them at the last moment. So yeah, a really exciting event.
American hopes were up in the NACRA 15, where Kay Brunsvold and Cooper Delbridge were locking horns with Thomas Proust and Eloise Clabon from France. After 13 races, it was the French team that took victory by 5 points. But the hardest way to win gold by far was in the ILCA 6 male class. After 9 closely fought battles, Bermuda's Sebastian Kemp was victorious by just 1 point over both second and third. Slovenia's Luka Zabakovec and Jose Mendes from Portugal finished on 40 points apiece, with the Slovenian taking second on the tiebreak.
Amazing. It's I've been working so hard for the last 2 years for this moment. It feels really, really good. It was so tough. It was hard for me to concentrate. It was extremely stressful, trying to do the maths in your head and then also trying to see which boats you have to beat. It was, with the conditions as well, it was extremely difficult.
Finally, there was the Nations Trophy for the best team performance, won by France.
December in Oman had delivered a superb event, a fitting celebration for the 50th anniversary. But what also struck me was that while close racing and medal-winning performances were impressive, so too was the number of different nationalities that were at the front of the fleet. If this event is a barometer for the state of the sport, then the future for international racing looks very bright indeed. When sailing lost its place in the Paralympics, the sport threw up its arms in disbelief. It's still difficult to accept that this part of our sport is no longer represented at the Games, but thankfully those behind the scenes haven't given up. I recently spoke to the new CEO of World Sailing, David Graham, to find out more about what's been going on. Nice to see you again, David. Nice to see you back in the UK. It's been quite a while and you've had quite a lot on, I'm sure. But there's some new news about the future of Paralympic sailing, which I think could be really quite interesting.
Obviously, it was a massive disappointment for us that sailing came out of the Paralympic Games. I think speaking with the IPC, particularly about why we came out of the Games, and we need to focus on elements such as making sure that our gender equality is that needs a lot more focus, and inclusion, diversity, exciting the way we report. So we're focusing on all of those. The campaign is the glue that's just bringing it all together.
Tell us a bit about how that campaign manifests itself. What will it involve?
One of the first things we did was getting our member national authorities together, our M&As. We got them on a video conference call, and we presented this back the bid for the LA28 campaign. And the amount of passion out there and the amount of will to get us back in, and together we're stronger. So we're using some of our wonderful celebrities in the sport, both able-bodied and parasailers, and it's predominantly a digital campaign, but getting all of our M&As on board with us. So we're going to have a good footprint across the globe, hopefully.
Focusing a bit on the Paralympic Games, obviously, as you say, it was a massive blow. Everybody knows the story behind that. How big a task is it going to be to get Paralympics reinstated? I mean, I see from the announcement that you're sort of aiming at the Paralympic Games in 2028, which is quite a way off. It might feel like quite a way off for us. Is that a tight time frame? How does it fit? How do you see the road through to that?
Well, I think it's not going to be easy to get us back in, and that's why we're throwing everything at it. In terms of the time frame, we're not entirely sure, but we think it's something like we're going to receive a request for information from the IPC, and that is going to be fairly straightforward. Like, do we want to be considered for LA 2028, and then there will be a full application process, and then they have their vetting process, and it's their vetting process of the IPCs then submitted to the board, and we anticipate that they'll be making their decision in November, December 2022. And the IPC have come out and said that they're going to go and select sports that they would like in their games. We're up against some spectacular sports. And we're investing in it, and as I said earlier, we've listened carefully to the IPC, and gender equality is a big one, and so we're working specifically in that area, and we're positive and hopeful.
Is there anything specifically that has changed either in the Paralympic sport itself, or the mindset at World Sailing, or even the mindset at the IOC? Is there anything that has changed that makes this renewed push different from the quite considerable push that was applied a few years ago when obviously we ended up without it?
I think for us, I'm very keen that we're not just pushing to get back into the Paralympic Games, because if we're doing that, then you either win or you lose. So I'm really guiding the team, saying we need to focus on participation generally, getting more countries and more people involved in our sport. So I'm really saying we've got to focus on the component parts. And if we get all of those elements right, then hopefully we're in a much stronger place for us to be reinstated. And the comms campaign is kind of the icing on the cake that brings all of that together.
Brilliant. Well, it's good to hear that there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Good to see you in the the hot seat, I guess, so to speak. And good luck with it all. Thank you very much, David. As always, thank you so much for watching. Also, a big thanks to our sponsors and partners who share the Planet Sail vision and are helping to make all of this happen. If you fancy getting involved on that front, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Meanwhile, if you like what you saw and haven't yet subscribed, please do, and make sure you hit the notification bell as well, because that way you'll know when new features go live. You can follow us and like us on Facebook too. Plus, do keep letting us know what you think. We read all of the comments and we love hearing from you. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well. Until next time.